Good afternoon. Our show going to start a little early today because I have something to do today. So normally I come here at 8 o'clock, and I'm going to come a little early, leave a quick message from the Liberian Diaspora Equity Fund, and we just here to talk to you briefly today on a simple topic. Every single Saturday, we come to you and we bring a brief message concerning the Liberian Diaspora Corporation and concerning about issues happening in the country every Saturday at 8 p.m. But today I'm going to do a little early because I have to run around today. So I just figure I'll come in, have a quick conversation with my people, and maybe people can watch the show later on. If you're coming on board, please help me share the show. This is about the Liberian Diaspora Corporation, this generation's responsibility to Liberia, and how are we shouldering those responsibilities. Today's topic is the future. What will be our contribution? Let me repeat, the future. What will be our contribution? Every time I sit around and I go on social media, my heart hurts because I see the direction of our society and I see what we are interested in as a people. Anything that leaves the country, we don't care. We are not interested in it. Anything that moves the needle towards the right direction to elevate Liberia, nobody cares about it. But if the issue comes to talking about man, woman business, or man cussing or who slept with whom, or who's stolen in the government, or something that gives us that 2 minutes, that instant gratification, or that little high, that entertainment, we troop to that location because this is what entertains us. But the very issue that can transform our lives to be in the proper position to expand the country, nobody cares about it. Nobody thinks about it. The issue is, so what kind of society will we continue to become? How are we going to accept this as okay? What will we say to the next generation? Remember to this topic, the future. What will be our contributions to Liberia? As we continue to bring these messages out there, we are hoping somebody listens and recognizes that this generation, us, that are alive today, we have a responsibility to the country. And sometimes I wonder whether we will ever take that responsibility seriously. Sometimes I wonder whether we are going to look to Liberia and recognize that we have a duty to the country, and it's a duty that we cannot neglect. But are we just going to be entirely comfortable to leaving nothing, to setting no new standards in the country, to implementing the kind of values and morals that will continue to live this country? Nobody cares about it. Look, we will start the show. I will be here for approximately an hour, speaking to you on the topic, the future. What will be our contribution to Liberia? My name, as always, is Ensu Opa Dualu, and I'm broadcasting from the great state of Massachusetts. The Liberian Diaspora Corporation has been around now for almost 2 months, a little over 2 months now. And we have a simple agenda. That agenda is that we must make our mark on Liberia collectively, that we must come together to pull our resources in order to change something in the country. How are we going to change this if we don't come together as a people? I'm not talking about physically coming together. It's about pulling our resources and organizing here better in the West to be able to effectuate some change in the country. The future, what will be our contribution to Liberia? Are we taking our responsibilities seriously to the country? Or in a major way, we just say, you know what, wrong? I'm no longer in Liberia. Whatever happens in Liberia does not concern me because my children are not in Liberia. Liberia can go to hell for all I care. Is this how we're going to live our lives? And we are so proudly quick to proclaim that we are sons and daughters of Liberia, and yet and still we are not fighting to set any standard in the country that is going to protect the next generation. Can we say this unequivocally, that the next generation is going to be better than us? Every single time I see my people, especially on social media, and I see the things we value, and I see the kind of conversations that we value, and I see the very primal level that we are operating at, and those are the people that are giving validity in the country. Anybody who's interested in this mediocrity that sends the country nowhere, this is what we are interested in. The next generation, the future. What will be our contribution? In fact, better yet, what will be our legacy to the next generation? I personally believe the Liberian Diaspora Corporation can organize better, and we can go to the country and try to change some of this. We're not going to do all, but we must start this push towards the elevation of Liberia. I'll ask the question again, and I will ask you a few questions. I will discuss this. The future. What will be our contribution? Is our contribution only going to be I went and beat my heart in Liberia? Is that going to be our contribution to the republic? Don't tell me about government or what government is doing or what government is not doing. Every single society that has developed was developed in a majority way by its people. The government play a crucial role, yes. The government has to be a regulatory organization to make sure there is fair play and the rule of law is enforced. But I want to say something to you. The private sector is the engine. It's the engine that blows life, that breathes life back into government for government to function properly. We must go to the country and do this. Look, what will be our legacy to future generation? Are we preserving the environment to make sure Liberia is a decent place to live for the next generation? Are we doing this? We're cutting down the forest. When there are other mitigating strategies that we can employ to make sure we don't cut down the forest and still have charcoal in the country to burn. Better yet, we can gravitate from charcoal to something much, much more modern. But it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes ingenuity. Are we doing this collectively as a people? I will let you answer that question. Are we pushing to build the kind of governance structure that is going to make sure the next generation is far better than we are? Are we building a governance structure? If you look to the legislature today, our focus is not to move the country in the direction that we want. Our focus is entirely on the issue of how much somebody's getting paid, how flashy this person is with government resources. The private sector is entirely dormant. Men and women will not go to work. The next generation is not going to be prepared to take over Liberia because we collectively have done nothing to change this. Nothing we've done to change this. Those of us, and I repeat this every single time, who've been fortunate to have come to the West, in a majority way, we've turned our backs on Liberia because we say, you know what, Rome, Liberia business is hard to talk. It's never been a hard to talk Liberia business. It's never been hard to talk. Liberia business has always been an issue of taking up the responsibility by citizens. We only care about what happens in the country when we occupy a cushioned government position where everything, all the dreams we have, all the privileges we wanted in our lives that we did not work for, if those are provided by the government, we say, you know what, Ron, the country is okay. But let me ask you this question. Is the next generation protected? And every single time I remind you guys of this, the Liberian family is being dissolved. Let me repeat this. The Liberian family is being dissolved in a major way because the man and woman cannot stay together because there is no job provision, private sector job provision in our country. The next generation is not being prepared adequately. Are we building economic sustainability in the country to make sure the next generation is far better than we are? Or we just complacent and say, you know what, Ron? That Liberia, my power and I hear, my mouth and I hear, and I still make it. Did you really make it? Do you believe taking $10 and putting a bottle, a bunch of bottles on the table to drink some Shinto that makes you've made it? Is that the true worth of a man? That we are complicit in a society that is headed nowhere in a substantial way. The government may play her part, but are we here in the diaspora playing our part to help the process in the country so men can go to work? I will continue to stress this, that the Liberian Diaspora Corporation can do this. Look, for those of you who are continuing to send your money in so we can build private sector in Liberia, I will continue to salute you and say thank you. Liberia must matter. We must find a way for Liberia to matter. We cannot continue to send our nothing to the country with the exception of, my man, AECO, you send them $50. You send them $40. This is amounting to nothing. The corporation must come to full bear so we can build something that is far greater than you and I in Liberia. How are we going to do this? It's going to take some calculations. It's going to take us hanging hay so we can go back to the country and build the kind of industries that is going to balloon the country to the economic sustainability that I stressed earlier. It will take time to put the university students to work. It will take time to put the technical colleges, students that are graduating every single day to work. But here in the diaspora, we are not doing enough. Through the cooperation, we can do far more. The next generation must be better than us. But if we do not make the preparation right now, if we do not lay the foundation to ensure the next generation is far greater than you and I, Liberia will continue to digress towards chaos. It's going to digress to increase corruption. It's going to digress towards pollution. It's going to digress towards disease. It's going to digress towards increased mortality rate in our country. It's going to digress substantially towards unemployment, like you see in the society today. We have these degrees. I went on social media. People are graduating. Big salute to them for working hard and graduating. And though some people will say, well, America helped me to graduate. Let me tell you the greatness of America. America encourages you coming here and learning and taking back that Americanness, the good things of America, back to your country to expand the country. This is a good thing. How are we going to turn our backs on Liberia when we are in a better economic position to transform things back home? Our brothers are not in the position to do this. We are. We must pull our resources to go back to the country so we can lift the next generation. Remember the topic today, the future. What will be our contribution to the future of Liberia? Will this contribution only be talking on social media? And then we are making a lot of noise about how this official is not doing what he or she's supposed to do. Let me tell you something about what happens in the country. I know you guys have heard this phrase. In the absence of the capable, the available becomes the capable. Close to 90% of people in the legislature do not have the preparation to truly transform the country, nor do they want to transform the country because they don't know how to. The cooperation must come in so we can up the private sector and create better skilled Liberians so they can come to governance, so we can develop better policies that's going to increase the production and the outcome of our country. So we can increase the GDP of our society, and by default, we increase the government budget. So we can build better infrastructure that expands the country. This is going to take time. It's going to take money. It's going to take effort. It's going to take us hanging hay so we can come back to the country so the next generation can be better than we are. We don't want to talk about these things because we are living in the comforts of modernity in another man's country, and we say this is all to life. I can guarantee you right now, if I turn this topic into, I know who slept with whom in Minnesota. I know who is chasing who in Philadelphia. I will get 300-400 people here easily. But let me ask you a question. Does that produce anything after the show is over? This produces production in Liberia because the intent is to put men to work. This ensures disease is reduced in our country because they ensure we bring ingenuity to the expansion of Liberian enterprise in our country. It takes effort to make sure this is possible. Now, we don't want to employ that effort. We don't want to pursue that effort. But we just want to relax and say, you know what, Liberia business is too high. What will be our legacy to the next generation? Are we building better educational systems to make sure they are better mentally than we are? I'm going to allow you guys to answer that question. Look, the Liberian Diaspora Corporation must be embraced by every single one of us. If we are going to effectuate some change in the country, if we do not embrace this, we will become old men and old women with regrets. And do you want to regret not helping to transform Liberia and you turn over Liberia to your children in a more deteriorated state than it currently is today? The private sector must be developed in Liberia so we can grow the country. But it cannot be grown by the people back home substantially because they don't have the kind of resources that we have here in the West. We have to pull those resources together. Organize better here in the West to ensure the future of Liberia is protected. Our resources will continue to be siphoned off by people who have no interest in the development of our country because they're going to come in with a multinational corporation. They are transient operations. They're just coming in temporarily. They take what they can and they leave the country. And we sit and we say, Liberia too poor. Look how really we can transform these guys. The magic of Singapore, go back to 1950. Go back to 1940 to South Korea, Seoul. This is not something that I'm saying. I want you to go read the history. I spend a lot of time reading these because I know my country can be transformed if we make the calculated decisions to transform this country. We have to commit to Liberia, y'all. We have to commit to Liberia in a substantial way, not partially, wholeheartedly. We must commit to Liberia if the next generation is going to be better than we are. But we got to commit resources to be able to do this. How do we invest in education and skills to make sure the next generation is better than us? Look, the government can do its part. I went to a church school in Liberia, and I believe maybe 80%, I could be wrong, but I'll put the number around 80% of every single Liberian who's alive either went to some form of church-oriented school, the Methodist, the Baptist. I went to SDA High School in Buchanan. We all went to the church schools. These were private operations that helped the government to improve the educational system in Liberia. The Liberian Diaspora Corporation can come in and build decent quality boarding schools for our children. We can build the Liberian Diaspora Hospital, the Liberian Diaspora University through this corporation, and at the same time make our shareholders money to expand Liberian enterprise, to protect our resources, and stop foreigners from coming to our country and taking literally everything we own. We cannot compete if we do not put our resources to be able to do this. Look, we reached out to the government for seed money, and I told them repeatedly, I must quit my job to commit my life entirely to this if we are going to raise this $25 million to transform our country. I know we can raise this money. We must get on the road while we still have the strength. You know, the rains are heavy. Right now it's raining heavily. Let's put all the bucket, all the top, all the BB drum also so we can catch enough rain. And we take that rain and we transform it into something in Zwedru. To build factory in Zwedru. To go to Ganta and realize that we can transform Ganta in a substantial way. We come into Banga and we turn our country into a bustling metropolis that gave jobs to our people through the corporation. What a legacy. If we here in the diaspora can do this, what a legacy that's going to be. That we came to America, we came to Europe, we went to Australia, we went to South Korea, and we learned certain skills, and we brought those skills back to Liberia and transformed Firestone. You think about it. Think about the legacy. Nobody will ask us and say, listen, Mr. Duarte, what were your contribution to future generation? And I would say, look to the industrialization that we did in Robertsport. Look to Tottenberg, how we transformed the city. It had 3-4 factories over there that we are paying $100 million into government taxes every single year to the corporation because we collectively got together and we built something. Can we leave this legacy to our children? How are we inspiring the next generation? It's the question that burdens me literally every single day. Are we doing anything to inspire the next generation? Or is our entire focus is on government job? Look, when a man refuses to think in the third world, in a developing society, and he wants certain lifestyle, he doesn't seek it out. He goes into the governmental space and he takes from the people that are already so poor. The corporation can change this through influence, to the garnering the kind of clout we want in the country to transform our country. But I need you to join me. And I need you to join the Liberian Diaspora Corporation so we can find a way to carve out 10 different red lights, industrial parks that are building things that are being used in the sub-region. We have the capability scattered across the globe that we can make sure we transfer back to Liberia. How are we going to do this? How are we going to come together and recognize that we have a duty to the country? Or we all going to say, but are the government? The government responsibility, I'm not going to argue to the contrary. The government does have a huge responsibility to ensure some of these come to life. I'm not going to deny that. But can you deny that we in the private sector, we private citizens of Liberia, we equally have a civic responsibility to our country to push to transform the society? Can we say that? Can we say that we are fighting to inspire the next generation so they can build our own Dubai? Can we say that? Go to the 1940s and look at Dubai. There is nothing that has been built in Dubai is magical. It was built by men, but it made certain decisions, and the decisions was intentional. The decision was targeted, and they found the best and brightest. They went across the globe, and they brought home experts to be able to impact their knowledge and skills back into their society so they can build the giant corporations you see transforming the United Arab Emirates today. It is not by magic. It is by grit. It is by calculated decisions. And we are refused in a substantial way to make those calculations, to commit to those calculations, to improve upon those calculations, to maintain those calculations, to grow those calculations so our children can inherit a better Liberia. Will Liberian children today inherit a better Liberia? Do you recognize that if they do not inherit a better Liberia, we fail collectively? Do you know this? Every succeeding generation after our generation will curse the day we were born. Now, what you were doing, Papa? That Liberia looking the other day. What did you guys do to ensure this country was developed? Our sons will ask us that question. What are we going to say to them? What are we going to say to our sons? That we did all we can to develop Liberia? Can we honestly tell them that we did do that? I believe the answer is no. And I believe we all know this answer. What morals, what lessons are we passing on to the next generation? Are we just going to leave Liberia extremely vulnerable where anybody can come from anywhere and eat our lunch and they get out tibly leftovers, and we are content with scraps? Content with scraps in our own country. What would we say to our daughters? That you're vulnerable because your fathers refuse to act? What are we going to say to our daughters? That you will amount to nothing? That you will not get a proper husband because the men are not brought up right in the structure of family? What we say to our sons? That you will get a debaucherous wife because the society neglected the formation of the family and keeping that cohesion together so we can develop proper communities? Look, there's a trickle-down effect, guys. When we neglect Liberia, plenty of things in chocolate on money. The dissolution of the family, the future generations, poor quality education. Look at the output across the country. Feces flowing down our premier streets, our primary streets. Boo-boo, running down Broad Street. It's normal. The primary streets of Liberia. You go to the hospital, they are poor quality because the sons and daughters of Liberia who have left this country have forgotten their responsibility to the country. Will we turn our backs on Liberia? Or will we be content with a deplorable condition that is Liberia? What will we say to our children? What will be our contribution to future generation? Have we inspired them? Have we built the proper schools? I am not talking government here, y'all. I am not talking government. Yes, government has a responsibility to build these schools. But the private sector must force the issue. We must force the issue. This is why we must develop private industry in Liberia on a massive scale so Liberian men and women can go to work, they can build their community, they can structure their community, and they can protect their community. And by default, they will force the government to bring what the people want. But we are disorganized. We have no more community to protect the society. Nobody's protecting our environment. We are polluting it, and we're going to bequeath it to our children. Those of us in the diaspora, you cannot neglect this responsibility. You must not. You must join us to build small-scale manufacturing in the country. I want you to go to www.Liberian Diaspora Corporation, Liberian Diaspora Equity Fund, rather. Let me repeat, www.LiberianDiasporaEquityFund.com. Go around the website. And for those of you who are continuing to send your money in so we can build large-scale manufacturing, small-scale manufacturing, the fishing industry, a garment factory in the country to put men to work, I want to thank you. And I want to say to you, Liberia appreciates your effort. Our children must be protected in a major way. Our women must be removed from this vulnerable state where they have to compromise themselves in ways that I cannot describe here. We must find a way to force the executive to act in the direction that the people want. We must find a way to force the legislature to be accountable to the people. We must find a way to force judges to rule right, to force magistracy across our country to recognize that they are answerable to the people, because if we build community, if we build industry, private sector expansion, if the Liberian community begin to be protected, we will force the issue that our society cannot continue to become a flakajay society. For those of you who are foreigners out there that will hear this word, it just means a society that's become so chaotic that there is no order. The chaos of our society is killing our children early. It's dissolving our marriages. It's disorganizing homes across the country. Look, we don't have time for Liberia to continue in its state. We do not have time. What we do have is a duty to country. We have an awesome responsibility. An awesome responsibility to the Republic of Liberia. And let me stress that word awesome for a second. It is so awesome. It is coming from the heavens itself, for the ancestors, that we cannot leave the next generation worse off than we are. This is how awesome this responsibility is. It is a responsibility that we must force the government to act right through private sector expansion. It is a responsibility that those of us who have been given the opportunity to know better, to have seen better, to have experienced better, we have a duty to look back to the country to effectuate better that improves the country. This is how awesome this responsibility is. It is easy to move to Phoenix or Arizona and you say, you know what, Ron, Tango, me and Liberia not get talk. It is okay to move to Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, and you say, you know what, Ron, me and Liberia ain't get talk. You can move to Fargo, North Dakota, or you can move to Charlotte, North Carolina, or Worcester, Massachusetts, or Providence, Rhode Island. You can move wherever you want to move. And I repeat this every single time because Mbeki said it right. You are not Liberian because you were born in Liberia or because you have Liberian heritage or you were born here and your parents are Liberian. You are Liberian because Liberia is born in you. You can't get rid of it. We are who we are. We must embrace us. And that embracing must be expanded into Liberia. It must go into Tubmanburg and produce fruits. It must go into Buchanan and start production. It must go into Monrovia and expand the economy. This is a duty. It's a responsibility that we must shoulder collectively. People say, "Oh, Dwalo, you're doing this because you want to help the government." I have several people tell me this. I don't give a hoot about helping the government. The government is big enough, is strong enough to help itself. I care about the elevation of Liberia. I don't care. I care about, let's find a way to put these men to work. That's what I care about. I care about, let's find a way to expand the Liberian economy. I care about giving men dignity. I care about giving women the option to pick the mate properly without an inducement that is out of their control. This is what I care about. I care about decency in our society. I care about order. I care about stringent, strict law enforcement. I care about law and order. I care about putting the Liberian family first. I care about equity in pay. I care about making sure the government budget is distributed in a way that improves the standard of living in our country. But the private sector must force this issue. And this is what the Liberian Diaspora Corporation was set up. Every show, I remind you the 4 basic objectives of the Liberian Diaspora Corporation. 4 simple aim of this corporation. First is to make our shareholders money. Second is to ensure we put thousands of men to work across the country through private enterprise. Thousands of men and women must be put to work across Liberia because this is what it's going to take to expand the country. Number 3 is to build the kind of economic influence in the country so we can decide the direction of our society. Number 4 is to bring Liberian expertise back to Liberia so we can grow Liberian industry. This is the aim of the corporation, and I will need you to join me from across America. Mr. President, every single show, this segment will never be forgotten. We have reached out that we must do this full time. We must quit our job to be able to go ahead and get on the road so we can raise this money. We must raise this $25 million so we can go home and start building Liberian industry to be able to compete against the foreigners that are literally coming to our country and becoming multi-millionaire overnight while we are not creating Liberian local millionaires. This must change. We will do this through the corporation. We continue to ask for seed money. This money can be refunded back to the government so we can grow Liberian industry. Every single society, don't take my word for it, look to the books. Every single society that has developed, the government introduced these fiscal and monetary policies, these austerity measures, this infusion of subsidies towards their private industries to be able to grow that industry. As the industry was grown, that industry developed, they refunded the government, they increased the government tax base. Now they're paying billions of dollars into the government revenue arm. But this was developed initially by the government because the government recognized one thing. In order to grow Liberian budget, the Liberian national budget, we must grow the private sector. And it's in the government's interest to be able to embrace this idea of expanding the Liberian private industry so we can groom better Liberian entrepreneurs across the country so we can grow the private sector. As the private sector grows, the standard of living is going to be improved. As the standard of living improve, they're going to build better houses. You can tax those houses. You can tax the income. And we grow the government tax base. As we grow the government tax base, we'll have more money to build more infrastructure. This is the aim of the corporation, is to be the engine that expands government revenue intake. And that engine must be expanded across the country. We have zoned our country into 5 economic zones. And those zones will have serious industries in them. And the goal is to develop industries in those zones across the country, put men and women to work so we can grow our society, so we can protect our society, so we can build economic sustainability that we control. Look, if we do not develop local Liberian millionaires to be able to go into Ganta and expand Ganta, Liberia's growth may be stagnated almost permanently. Look, for some 180 years, we can say in a substantial way that we have been stuck in no place. We have been stuck back to the growth without development stage. And we have not gravitated beyond that stage. And we are content with that stage. And we believe this is where we belong. For those of you Liberians who have resigned to the faith that nothing good can come from Liberia, let me say this to you. Liberia has tremendous potential. And I'm not one of those people who believe that its potential must be sent over to multinational corporations that come to the country, extract its resources, and literally export them out of our country. We must build the factories in Buchanan. We must build them in Habel. We must build them in Kakata, in Zwedru, in Vonjima, in Sanikwele. They must be built in Foya, in Tuzan. They must be built there. And then we can create local millionaires. And these millionaires are going to develop their own local districts, etc., etc., etc. This is how every single society develops. But the private sector must play a crucial role. We are here in the diaspora. We are content with little to nothing. We work 9 to 5. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't misquote me. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if I were to tell you that you can do far better, far greater, to make sure your children are not in the position you're currently in, but greater, will you consider it? The corporation offers this. That we can come together collectively and elevate Liberia, by extension, elevate ourselves, and we can leave something better to our children, where our children don't have to start from the bottom like we did. They can start at a higher level. And a higher level will be strengthened, will be organized, and it will be protected by the policy decisions that we make, by the institutions that we build around it, and by the structures that will strengthen continuity. But we got to do this together. You must join the Liberian Diaspora Corporation. Again, I will continue to thank the people that are continuing to buy shares, and I will continue to say this to you. Thank you very much. And thank you for remembering Liberia, for helping us, hopefully, to be able to invest into private education in the country, quality private education that will expand the country, to be able to build institutions in the country that will inspire the next generation to be far greater than us. Please, if you listen to this message in the future, pass the message on. That Liberia needs her sons and daughters to turn back to her so we can develop something in the country that is bigger, that is better, that is grander than anything we ever imagined. This is doable. But I need you to join me. To be able to raise the money so we can go home and start full production. So we can go home and make sure the plum and the oranges do not go to waste, and establish a massive juicing operations so we can become more nourished. To make sure our fish is not being taken away by foreign vessels that come and illegally fishing in our waters. We can purchase our own vessels to start Liberian massive fishing industry to expand across the country. I need you to join me. I need you to join the Liberian Diaspora Corporation so we can build industry in our country. I will continue to come to you every single Saturday, or maybe more when the time allows it, to bring this message to you that for Liberia to grow, her sons and her daughters must turn back to the country with a targeted intention. And our intention must be measured. That intention must be defined. That intention must be grand. That intention must think Liberia. That intention must love Liberia. And our intention must build Liberia at heights we never before imagined. It must be an intention that elevates the entire society, that will leave our children in a better position than we were. And I want to ask you from across the country here in America, I'm going to ask you, those of you in Europe, those of you in Australia, in Canada, to join this effort. The Liberian Diaspora Corporation is on the tracks. We started this train, and I need you to join me to raise to $25 million so we can build Liberian industry in Liberia. We cannot compete if we do not put our resources together. It is okay for one person to go home. There's nothing wrong with that. You take your one self home and you want to build business in the country, the probability of that business succeeding, especially where you are not permanently domiciled in the country, It's almost slim to none. Thousands of people have tried this. We will be permanently living in the country to build Liberian industry. We want to build the kind of institutions that are going to expand our society economically, to be able to sustain the kind of growth that we want for our society, to put men and women to work. But this cannot be done in the absence of you getting involved. You must get involved. Get $100, buy a share. The share costs $100. And my goal here is to make sure every single Liberian in the diaspora buy 10 shares. That's $1,000. People are continuing to send the money, and I will continue to thank them. Thank you. As we raise this almost $25 million, we have to raise this money, go back home and say we have come to take full control economically of our society, to make sure we become the largest importers in the country, the largest exporter out of our country, to create local Liberian millionaires so they can develop their own country. This is how every society did it, but it takes the private sector to do this. Let's create genuine millionaires, people that truly work for their money. No blemish, no accusations, but money that is dug up through grit, through ingenuity, through hard work, through strategy, and through inventing something in the country that transform our society. The cooperation is here. We are going to extend it to every single Liberian. One share is $100. Our goal is to get each person to buy a minimum of 1,000 shares. I mean, a minimum of 10 shares. That's $1,000 to join this effort so we can build Liberian industry. Look, the topic today was the future. What would be our contribution to the future? Have we defined that contribution? Building your own house in Liberia is not a contribution to the future. That's your personal home. I'm talking about a contribution that is far greater than you and I. A contribution that will make sure we, as citizens of Liberia that have come to the diaspora, that we pull our resources to build factories in Vonjima, to build a massive large-scale rice production in the country where we halt importation of food to our country. This is the kind of legacy that I'm talking about. Where through the cooperation, we can expand operation of a large-scale fishing industry. We can start manufacturing basic stuff in the country that is going to expand the country. Somebody once told me, boy, Insu, we don't have the population. Yes, we do. We have the entire sub-region. We have Ivory Coast. What? I don't think their population is what? I'm not sure. Maybe 30 million. Guinea, maybe 15, 20 million. Somebody correct me. I think Sierra Leone is close to 20 million, maybe more. I have to look it up. In that region alone, we have over 50 million people. The production, I don't want you to think about this is something restricted to Liberia. As we develop the markets, that we develop the product, those products can be expanded to local markets across our borders. But we must create Liberian local millionaires so we can begin the true development of our society. And the only way we can do this is to pull our resources, come together with one fist, and truly develop something in the country. Are we just going to stay here in the West? And every single year we send home between $300 or maybe sometimes $600 million, over $500 million we send home every single year over the last 40 plus years. What's in that conference? But imagine if we pull $25 million together and we build a garment factory, 6,000-7,000 sewing machine. We put 10,000-15,000 men and women to work where we make these shirts in Liberia for regional market. Instead of cutting down the trees across the country, we bring in the machinery where we take all the coconut husk, build a massive coal factory in the southeast. We don't have to cut any trees down. We set a large-scale oil manufacturing business, coconut oil production, coconut husk, 10,000 different products from coconut. We take the husk, we turn them into coal. The same coal you see at Walmart, we can turn them into the coconut husk. And we start coal production. We don't have to cut down our trees anymore. We preserve our forest. But guess what? We are putting thousands of men and women to work through the corporation. The machines are available. There is nothing in Liberia right now that you use every single day that don't have a machine that we can set up a factory in the country. Right now, we can buy, we bring it to the country. We got foreigners coming to our country and crushing our rocks. When we are building roads, they're becoming multi-millionaires overnight. This is our rock. One of those machines, 30,000 to 100,000 it costs for one of those machines. we can buy 10 to do the cooperation and become the largest distributor of rocks in the country to build our roads. We start creating local Liberian millionaires. But this can be done through the cooperation. It's going to take collective effort. I need you to join me. And I need you to remember this. For those of us who have been given the opportunity to know better, those of us who have learned something, those of us who have experienced better, we have experienced modernity, we have an obligation, a duty of the highest calling to transform Liberia, or at least take that idea back to Liberia, to be able to build something to put men and women to work, so future generations can have their contributions from us. So when we die, we know that Liberia is being left in good hands because we've developed the minds of our young people to be far greater than us so they can protect Liberia. Your presence extends to your children. And those children must protect our society. But if we do not prepare them to protect the society, the exploitation of Liberia will continue. Our mines, our gold, our diamonds going to be exported out of the country. The logs going to be sent out of our country, rubber, etc., etc., etc. But yet and still, we sit into the society and we are dying in larger and larger number before the age of 60. The life expectancy in the country right now is below 63. We're dying sooner. Childbirth. Mothers are dying childbirth because of lack of proper medical facilities across the country. The private sector can change this. I have no doubt in my mind. As we start getting Liberians back to the country, we'll be forced to improve the standards in the country. The diaspora have a duty to come home in a major way. In a major way. And I've continued to define what constitutes a major way. A major way constitutes bringing back expertise to the country. That's in a major way. A major way means we come back to the country and we take up positions at universities and high schools and elementary schools to be able to impact knowledge back to our people. That's a major way. A major way is to come to build a factory in Zwedru. That's a major way. To go into Lexington, into Grand Crew County, and we can build a large-scale fishing industry. That's a major way. A major way is to come into Monrovia and build institutions that strengthen the government policies of our society. That's a major way. A major way is to recognize that education is not just for you, it's for the expansion of the republic. And as I'm about to leave you, I will always say this to you, and I want you to remember our children and the future of Liberia, that we are doing a very poor job. But maybe perhaps we may have some time over the next 12 months to raise this money and get to the country to build some decent quality boarding schools where our children can get top-notch education and force the government schools to go up to standard. And instead of a massive standard, force the education ministry to implement some of the standards that are going to make the children better, to force the standards at LU so we can put up better graduates. The private sector must push some of this agenda. But you and myself got to play our part. And part of playing our part is to buy a share in the corporation so we can go home and help develop our society. As President Bouaka will always say, I want you to think about Liberia always. I want you to love Liberia. And I want you to help us join hands so collectively we can develop Liberia. Once again, my name is Ansu Opa Dwalu, and I'm broadcasting from the great state of Massachusetts. It was a pleasure, as always.